superstar squad. We've got Fraser Watson with us. Good evening.
Good evening, Tom. And right now, it's not the show only in need of tactical substitutions. We said we'd bring the latest scores tonight. Narberth are 10-0 down at Goodwick. So there's a few teams needing some tactical subs right now, Tom.
That's quite an orange slice to be having at half-time, isn't it? And we've got Gordon Thomas with us as well. Good evening.
Hiya, Tom.
How are you doing?
Good to have you on the show again tonight. I'm fronting up.
It is my pleasure to be here, as it is every single Monday evening with Eaton-Evans and Morris Solicitors. First things first, a great in-depth conversation there about these new licenses, Fraser. We were just catching up there with Vintan about Muck Adventures and the risk that this poses. What are your thoughts on it as someone that's regularly taking part in adventures around the coast?
Oh, I think it's over-policing and regulations gone mad, isn't it? But it's the way authorities are going now. Everything is so enforced. Everything is so strict. There's such paranoia about liability. And it threatens to ruin what isn't a great, adventurous activity here in Pembrokeshire. Brings a lot of youngsters to our county, give youngsters a lot of new opportunities. Co-steering, I dare say, being about when you were growing up, Sealyham and things like that. Good, very popular. It's just madness, Tom. I like to think they won't push through with it, but once an authority reacts and proposes these plans, it's very rare they go back, isn't it?
Yeah, if you missed out on that interview, it was very great. It was in-depth, insightful from people that have been running these adventures for years. They've become a staple of our coastal sport experience. You can listen back once this show's finished at 8 o'clock at purewestradio.com. Back to the traditional sports, shall we say. Gordon, over the Easter break, were you able to indulge in any sport?
Well, over the Easter break, I was actually in Portugal, away from it all. And then I came back and there was 2 Senior Cup finals to take care of, which I did on the Wednesday and the Friday. And then Saturday, I rushed down to the Obs for Hakin to receive the Division 1 trophy, which they thoroughly deserved. So we'll talk a bit about that later, Tom.
A little bit later on, of course, they still got things to win, and Goodwick are doing quite well at the moment. Fraser, how was your sporting week?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Tom. Busy one, actually. On Saturday, I was in Wales Women, covering them, like the men, really. Positives to take, but a defeat, just how we started the Six Nations ourselves, but they went down to Scotland. And then Sunday, I covered the dubiously dubbed Hollywood Derby between Birmingham and Wrexham. It was more like House of Horrors than Hollywood for 45 minutes. But Birmingham won that 2-0. So, dagger in Wrexham's playoff hopes there. And then last night, not for work, I will say, I stayed up on the Rory McIlroy roller coaster like we all, and in true Rory style, he was 6 clear after 2 rounds and had us in the balance right until midnight last night. So eventually I got to bed. Yeah, incredible tournament, but we'll talk more later. But
I think Fraser, he waited 17 years to win that tournament, and now he's won back-to-back titles.
Yes, yeah.
It's phenomenal.
But hey, the Rory narrative and the hysteria around Augusta's not gone yet, good, because no one's ever won 3 green jackets in a row. So we got another 12-month build-up of Rory's destiny coming. But no, back to football to start, aren't we? I think.
Yeah, back to football and Division 1. We showed a picture last week from down at Connect Pembrokeshire, gives us a roundup of just how tight it was at the bottom of that Division 1.
Wow, yeah.
And we now know who is going down after, we were just saying, quite the end of the season for them. What's your take on it, Fraser? I'll be honest, it's taken me by surprise.
I'll be honest with you the same, Tom. If you look at the mitigation here, obviously Ben John, such a big player for him. They lost him to a lengthy spell for injury. Laurie Horworth, been a key player for them over the years. Joined Merlin's Bridge. Already at the start of the year, they'd had the disruption of Matthew Fox leaving to go to Goodwick. I think Josh Wood or Jake Vittoria went with him. So they lost a couple of players, and they did have a brutal finish. They were left needing to get a result from Hakin home and Hakin away. But still, all that said, I did not see this coming. I watched them beat Penarth 6-3 just before Christmas. I thought they were comfortably better than Penarth, and they were sitting in mid-table, and they seemed to have the points in the bag. And the form of the other teams just turned in the final few weeks. They were getting wins from nowhere. Narberth at one point I thought were gone. Penarth I thought were gone. Both teams had revivals. Fishguard were hanging on there, and Clarby all of a sudden, along with Carew, but Carew managed to play Tenby, and Tenby stuttered, actually, helped quite a few of the sides in relegation by losing games against them over the weeks. And Clarby found themselves down there. And, look, Clarby is a solid club. It doesn't panic. It rebuilds. There's a lot of homegrown players there. It's gone down to Division 2 before and not panicked. But I will say, I did not see this coming. And I was just thinking the other day, it's 2 years ago when they got over the line in a Senior Cup final. They got the monkey off their back. They won the major trophy they waited so long for. And we were talking to Matthew Davis in there. They did a good season in the league, but not quite being consistent enough. And we were talking about the challenge for them now was to find the consistency to challenge the top teams and almost become a title challenging side, or a side that was at least in the picture. And 2 years later, we're talking about them going down to Division 2. Like you, Tom, I didn't see it coming. I don't know what Gordon's take is.
Yeah, it's sad. The fact is that they didn't have enough strength and depth in their squad. You're right with Matthew Fox going to Goodwick. Josh Wood, their captain, went as well, and they've had a few injuries, as you pointed out, and they were, as I looked through the season, they were always struggling for numbers. They would only have one on the bench phrase, and that doesn't bode well when you're going through some of the games that they went through. Sure. But I have to say, I mean, I didn't see Penner Robbins winning 3 games on the bounce.
I thought they were gone.
Well, they won 3 games on the bounce to survive. So, I have to give them compliment for doing it.
You have to credit the teams that came from behind.
They did.
There's some real fight shown in the final.
It was a really, really interesting business end of the season at the bottom this season, more so than the league title.
Yeah,
because,
certainly.
Hakin were runaway winners, to be honest with you. There's no question. But there was about 6 teams at least could have gone relegated. But, it is sad to see Clarby go. They will bounce back. They're a club that have got a great junior section. And Matthew Ellis, who's stuck through them thick and thin, is still there. And he will be there next season in Division 2. And he will build towards getting promotion. I'm sure Matthew will. He won't want to finish on a, of a relegated story. Yeah. It's not in his ethos. He's Mickey Ellis's son, and I know Mickey very well. They're winners, winners are grinners, so he'd be back.
We see many clubs, don't we? They go down, and it's almost the beginning of the end, short term at least. Maybe beginning of the end might be a little bit dramatic, but certainly the drop continues. I mean, we've seen it at Branson, their struggles last year. They've gone down again from 2. Yeah. Boys leave. Some boys run to the hills, have to be said. Other go to other teams, and the commitment drops off. Gordon's right. I don't see that happening at Clarbeston Road. In fact, I'd be amazed.
Even though they were struggling for numbers for the best part of this season?
Struggling for numbers.
Yeah. Okay. The team which I think pulled off another great escape, Carew, they surprised me because they had that season where they were languishing at the bottom and then they managed to stay up. They had a similar start to this season, and yet they managed to get through.
Said, Jack Christopher coming in at Christmas made a huge initial impact. 3-4 wins, and they were actually looked to be sailing towards safety before a loss at Narberth, and they were brought back into it with results from others. And we spoke to Marcus Griffiths a couple of weeks ago, and they were seemingly safe then. And as it turned out, they weren't. They needed another win, which they got at Tenby, who gave quite a lot of charity to the teams fighting at the bottom towards the end. We've got to say that, but no. Jack Christopher was a very good player, Welsh League experience. Seemingly knows what he's doing.
For Scott Richards, he did very well at Carew. Unfortunately, results wasn't going his way, and he was brave enough to agree to step down and let Jack take over. And sometimes it needs a freshen up, and that's exactly what's happened at Carew. And they got a nice blend of experienced players with some really good youngsters coming through. So the future is pretty bright for the Rooks for next season. I think they'll be up in the top half.
Up in the top half. You've heard it from Gordon here. And then one team that also surprised me, you're saying that they were very charitable towards the team at the bottom. I thought that Tenby were going to put on more of a sustained challenge. What happened to them at the halfway point?
You do wonder. They're seconds, I think, are fighting for something, aren't they, in a league? So, whether they prioritise that as a club towards the end of the season, I don't know. I might be speaking out of turn there. But no, I think, if I'm honest with you, I'm looking at it now, Tom. 5th place for Tenby on 28 points and 30 points off Hakin. That represents a major underachievement for me. I don't mind saying that. I watched them. Of course, there was West Cup final last year. I watched them take Goodwick apart, really, at Phoenix Park earlier in the year. They won that game. I think it was 3-1 or maybe even 3-0 in the end. I have to recall. But I looked at that side and thought, if they can be consistent, they are in the title picture. They'd only narrowly lost 2-1 to Hakin the week before, and they were very upset to lose that game, actually. And I watched them beat Goodwick, and I didn't expect them to be this far off the pace. Not saying I thought they'd win the title, but I thought they'd be in the picture. And I looked at the players they had that day. Joe Leahy, they were playing him in a deeper role, played very well. The movement of Scott Fernie up front was causing havoc. Sean Whitfield in at right back. His throw-ins alone were an extra weapon. I'm surprised to have seen them dropped off like they have.
Yeah. And the team that didn't drop off and actually kept that sustained challenge, and it's found them into a cup final, was Moncton.
Yeah, well, I was away actually for the Senior Cup semi-final, so I'll let Gord go over them. But you're right, Moncton, Goodwick fun. Probably on paper, Gord, fair to say that the winners that we expected, or who were the two favourites, went through.
Yeah,
but
in the semi-final.
how did the actual games pan out?
Yeah, they did actually on the Wednesday evening.
On paper, it looked like Nayland put up a strong fight.
Nayland put up a very, very strong performance. They defended really well, resolutely, but they just had Dylan Davis has made a big difference. He's scoring goals at this moment in time. He had a few on Saturday as well. He had a penalty and scored when it was 1-1. He scored the winner shortly after the break, but they were never really in trouble, to be honest with you. You were waiting for the Nomads to possibly nick one to force, but it looked as though Moncton were playing within themselves. Possession-wise, they were good on the ball. They just lacked a little bit in the final third, but they got the job done.
And credit to Nayland, come back from that disappointment and beat Milford United again on Saturday and seal promotion as well.
Wow. Yeah.
I actually like that because it still looks on paper, they have been stuttering that Milford United take the title. That guarantees Nayland second place.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Hakin seconds, they're up there and they deserve to be. But I don't like it when one of the second teams is in the top two and another goes up by default. It's what did for Herbie. They were actually fourth in that league and ended up having a promotion they didn't merit, right? And they probably didn't want. And I always think promotion should be on merit and you should be in the top two spaces. That's maybe, but
that's something to bring up at the AGM. Phrase,
it'll go down well.
The
I'm
top
sure.
two only go up.
Goodwick and Tish then, it simply looked on paper, tight first half, and Goodwick pulled away in the second.
Oh yeah, definitely. Goodwick played really well in the last quarter of that game. They were far fitter. But Aaron Hallam tried an audacious 40-yard lob that kept the post when it was 0-0. Only he would do that, but it was just a marvellous bit of skill. I just chuckled to myself when he did that.
It just felt so much of the build-up was obviously around with Aaron. And I understand why he's a big player. But, I thought there was maybe too much emphasis on it. I don't know what the emphasis was in the Tish camp. Tish actually did very well initially when Aaron was injured. They kept their form going. My concern for them going into that semi-final is their results had stuttered a bit in the league. Now, it's probably because they had an eye on the Senior Cup semi-final, which I understand.
They had a good run in the West Cup as well.
You just looked at the momentum of going in, it probably stuttered a bit, even though Goodwick's had two. But and
I'll be honest, Nigel Delaney has told me they're targeting the Senior Cup. The league are gone.
That became clear from the team they put out of Penna.
Rhys Starling was absolutely brilliant as well on Friday. It's the best I've seen him play this season. So he's coming good at the right time of the season. But there was Will Howarth. They were all really, really, cutting. They cut Tish apart in the last 20 minutes. It was 1-1. It ended up 4-1.
Well, it's one to say for next Monday. Be an intriguing final now. Tight.
You go back 4 years ago, and it was. It wasn't a tight final.
No.
It was unbelievable. Moncton won. Not Moncton won. Goodwick won. 5. Was it 5-0 or 5-1? And Rhys Jones. He had 4. 4 goals. 4 goals. So I'm looking forward to the final. I think it'll be a lot closer. Both sides are playing some really decent football at the moment. You probably edge towards Goodwick being the favourites, having the experience they've had over the last few years. But this Moncton side, they're very good.
And both with a balanced readdress, really. Goodwick lost their last final, surprisingly, to Clarby, didn't they? 3-2, the day we just spoke about. And Moncton, for their history, their records in finals in the last couple of years isn't good.
I saw Dean Driscoll, who was one of the officials. He played for Moncton and Penna, but he broke his leg, unfortunately, 19 years ago. He reminded me when Moncton last won the cup.
2007.
19 years.
And since then, they've had 5-0 defeat to Hakin. Justin Harding inspired Hakin that day. The Rhys Jones inspired Goodwick one, so they haven't shown up well when they've been in finals. So they'll want to address that.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got Stephen Price with us over on Facebook. Good evening to you. And we've got Afro with us on TikTok. Narberth aren't having a good night tonight. 10-0 down after 60 minutes. And then he goes on further to talk about the seconds. Return the seconds to reserve divisions.
Oh, that's another conversation for another show. But we will talk about that. We will talk about that sometime.
I suppose there's still cup finals to go, but I think that we should save that for nearer the time, don't you?
Well, we'll be there this Friday. We'll be down there, won't we? It's Johnston against Hakin Seconds in the Division 2 Cup final at the Meadow. So they'll be coming thick and fast. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that on Monday.
And it's interesting to note that Hakin Seconds beat Johnston, I think it was 5-1, last week in the league. So I'm sure Johnston will.
I don't think our own Den Metcalf is going to sneak into the fist for that one. I did notice he was in goal for Johnston again on Saturday. Johnston incidentally playing at the moment. We'll run down those scores now.
Things these boys do for a medal, mate.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, they're back in form, Johnston. They're beating Solver 2-0 at the moment.
Fantastic.
And yes, Ryan Williams, Narberth manager, playing central defence tonight. So the rest of the boys obviously hang over from surviving. But it's currently 10-0 down and good. Again, Tish 5-0 up at newly safe Fishguard. So yeah, I think the boys who stayed up on the weekend had quite a Saturday and a Sunday by the sounds of it.
Ironically, I have a friend from Fishguard who texted me on Saturday afternoon, "Are you at the Hakin game?" And obviously I said yes. And he was looking at the app, and as he looked at the app, Hakin just scored. He was quite relieved.
Feels like a good time to put a player mic on them and get them on the show, actually.
Yeah.
We're going to take a moment, though, and give us your thoughts on the football from the weekend and what's still to come over these last remaining weekends. 01437 764455 on the WhatsApp, the Pure West Radio app. We're live on social media, or you can catch us on the Messenger. But coming up after a short break, we've got someone who's going to be joining thousands of other people, Fraser, traipsing around the streets of London.
Yes, he will be. 26.2 miles. Martin Langdon, very good friend of mine, and who set the pace for me at the Eaton-Evans half. I did recently. He set the pace 6-7 miles. He disappeared off in the distance, but he certainly quickened me up to begin with. But looking forward to talking to him.
He's coming up next. If you're on you're tapering for your London Marathon training, let us know any of your hints and tips and how you're keeping your mood in check. How many bananas are you eating every week? I'm intrigued. It's 7:20. We're talking to Martin Langdon next here on your Pure Sport Show with Eaton-Evans and Morris Solicitors.
Eaton-Evans and Morris Solicitors have traditional